ready to mill this crown. Everything has been adjusted, mesial and distal contacts. We are going to hit next once you are done playing with those tools. And what you have now is a milling preview. One important thing that I want to highlight for you here is every time I have my mouse, my cursor over the crown, if you take a look in the bottom here, you might see thickness, and you can see different areas. You see that I'm moving my mouse and the thickness is changing here, so I can see now 1.20, 0.85, 1.12 millimeters, and so on. So if you want to make sure you have a very nice restoration with a very good longevity, you should make sure that you should check all the areas, making sure that you don't have less than 1 millimeter minimum for thickness of the ceramic. The only exception can be the central groove. The central groove is okay. You won't have any occlusal contacts there. But on every single slope of cusp here, I want to make sure I'm just using my cursor, my mouse, passing those areas, and I want to make sure that at least I have 1 millimeter. So everything looks fine here. I don't see any areas with less than 1 millimeter. Again, the exception would be the central groove. Right there I have 0.8 millimeters. That's fine. I don't have any occlusal contacts in that particular area. Over here I have almost 2 millimeters, 1.10. I'm fine. You can do the same thing on buckle if you want. So I can see I have 1.6, 1.5 millimeters. Everything looks fine. The same thing on the mesial, on the lingual, and on the distal. So in terms of thickness, we are fine. We are okay. Again, if you have problems in terms of thickness for the ceramic, idea would be minimum 1 millimeter. Go back to your patient's mouth, finish better that prep. You need more reduction for the preparation, and you need more room for your ceramic thickness. If you don't do that, you might cause a fracture in this crown later on. So minimal clear thickness for the ceramic in cusps and in slope of cusps is about 1 millimeter. The second thing is on this preview, you can see that on the mesial we have this small little sprue here, right? So I will explain that for you, what it means, a sprue. The sprue is the last connection that this crown has with the ceramic block by the time the block has been milled on the milling unit. So, and you can move this sprue to different areas. You can move to the distal, you can move to the lingual, or to the buccal. It's up to you. The only problem with this sprue is, as you can imagine, once you are done milling the crown, you have to remove or shave down this sprue area. So ideally, you don't want to touch in proximal contact areas, including mesial and distal. So what you can do is we can change the sprue location. Once I hit next and I have this milling preview area, you can notice a left menu on your screen. The first information here is the milling unit that has been selected already. You can see a green mark, a green check. That means the milling unit is connected wireless with this machine. We do have the block visualization. I'm going to explore that in a few minutes. And the third spot here we have is sprue location. And over here I have mill optimized. However, I can change that the way I want. I can select mesial, distal, buccal, or lingual. Honestly, for my opinion, clinically speaking, I like to move the sprue towards the buccal or the lingual, never on mesial and distal. Why? Because I don't want to touch the proximal contacts later on. So let's move to the buccal, and you see what happens now. The sprue ended up moving to the buccal area. So I want to make sure that I don't have any more adjustments on my mesial or my distal contact. Internally here we can see the crown. You can see the proper margin design here. The Cerec software is so precise that it can even predict for you the indentations for the milling burrs inside that crown. You can see it's a more like a rough area. Externally here is beautiful, it's really nice. I have changed the sprue location. There we go. Now the other thing you can do here is you can have a block visualization, as I mentioned before. So if you select the block, let's click select the block. Let's put Vita Mark II, that's the block you're going to be using for this exercise, and that's the block you have in your kit. I'm going to hit OK and see what happens now. I have a virtual block, ceramic block, showing on the screen, and you can see that the sprue is right there on the buckle. Again, this will be the last connection between the crown and the remaining ceramic material, and you have to shave down that sprue later on. So this is the block that you're going to be using in the Cerec machine. During the lecture we have discussion about the different types of blocks, so you're familiar with every single type of block. This part here represents the metal connector that is going to be attached to the milling unit, and this more light part represents the ceramic portion. So once you put this block in the milling unit, basically two burrs are going to be working on this block. So they're going to start milling this crown externally and internally, creating a proper anatomy for you. So you're all set, and once you hit next here, we are going to send this information to the milling chamber. So I'm going to click now below next and undo. We have mill. Remember that this milling unit should be with a green check mark, and is already selected there. That means the wireless communication is working okay. So once everything is all set, we are going to hit mill, and now this information has been sent to the milling unit. We do have this screen showing up now. Then we can now select the block you're going to be working with, and we do have a number of blocks available that I don't have time to discuss here, but during the lecture I gave you all the information. But what is important is you need to select the block you have available for your case, and the Cerec machine is telling you the size of the block that the machine needs in order to mill this restoration, this crown. Again, this is a lower first molar, and as you can imagine, lower first molar normally is a big tooth, so we need an I-14 for this particular crown. Even if you select a different block here, you're always going to get number 14 there. Sometimes for smaller crowns, or let's say if you're doing inlay or non-lay, you might get I-8, I-10, I-12, and I-14. Those numbers I was also covering during the lecture, so you should be at this time familiar with all those numbers. The last information about milling before we hit OK here is this small little part, enable fast milling. A crown like that will take approximately, it takes approximately 20 minutes to mill. If you hit enable fast milling, meaning the burr is going to be rotating faster and you're going to consequently mill the block faster. However, I don't really suggest you to do that. Take your time, let the milling unit do a good job. Do not select enable fast milling. Okay, so let's select Vita Mark II. That's the block I have available, I-14. We're going to hit OK. And now I have the information. Please close the door of milling chamber. And you're going to move now the camera to the milling chamber, and I will show you how to properly set up the block on the milling unit. So now we have the milling unit open and ready to be working. We do have the Cerec block here. As you can see, I have the Vita block, and this is a shade of this block, and you have I-14. as I mentioned before. That's the one I was selecting there. So inside the milling unit, as you probably haven't seen in other videos, we do have this attachment here for the milling block, or the ceramic block, and you do have two diamond points, the left and the right one. The left one again is going to work on the inner surface of the crown, and the right one is going to create the anatomy. The Cerec machine also has this screwdriver, and you can see here. So I'm gonna just release this small screw there. We do have a small indentation here on the ceramic block. Hopefully you can see on the video there. And this small indentation is going to match up a particular position here on the attachment. So I'm putting the ceramic block in position, rotating, fully pressing, and using the screwdriver now. I'm going to make sure this is tight enough. There we go. Double check, make sure the block is not moving. And once I close the milling chamber, I have now the block ready to be milled. Ready to go. The milling chamber is closed. I have the block inside there. I'm gonna hit OK on my computer screen. And the first step that you're going to see here is the burr calibration. Once the burrs are calibrated, they're going to be slowly touching the block. It is also a way for the milling chamber to make sure that you put the right block inside there. You're going to see some water coming out from the burrs, and then the milling process will start. Again, this is going to take about 20 minutes, and I'm going to just do a few shots here to show how this thing is going to work. The milling process is done, and as you can see, the crown is right here. And there we go, we have a beautiful ceramic crown. You can see part of the sprue is still left there on the buckle, but we do have a beautiful anatomy. And so we are ready to go for the next step, in which is the dry-in. And once this is done, we are going to do the staining and glaze. So we finally got to the last stage here. Not really the cementation yet, but this is the dry-in of the crown on the tooth number 30. And unfortunately here we don't have the patient to simulate the real clinical scenario, but this is a model, and I would suggest you to check the crown on the model if you have a model. Remember, for CAD/CAM normally you don't take impressions, so you won't really, in a normal circumstance, having a cast model. But the things I'm doing here, we can definitely do in your patient's mouth. So here's a crown that we just took from the milling unit, and has been milled. I was checking and everything looks perfectly fine. I was also shaving down the sprue, and the crown is ready to be fitted. The other thing you might need is an exploder. We have an exploder over here and a piece of floss, because you want to check the proximal contact areas, and you're also going to check the margins. So the first step that you're going to be doing here is putting the crown in position. At this point here, it's good to remind you that in a clinical step, you can never ever ask the patient to bite in. This is not a PFM. This is not a gold crown. If the patient is occluding here or is biting in, that's it. You're going to probably break the crown in half. So you have to be really careful. And remember, the ideal prep for Cerec, normally the margins are super G. That means you have enamel available everywhere. If this is the case and there is a chance for you to place the rubber dun, do it. So with the rubber dun in place, there is no way for the patient to bite in and occlude on the crown. So we have the crown in position here, and let me see if you can bring closer to the camera. Hopefully you can see the margins. And in a dry try-in, what I'm doing with my exploder is I'm checking the margins with my exploder. There's a small little bubble here on the cast, but that's okay. As you can see here, it's pretty darn good here. It's really close, the margins. I pretty much don't see gaps visually. Your exploder, the tip of your exploder is about 100 microns, and as you can see, the exploder cannot fit in that small little gap that you can see there. Yes, we do have normally a small little gap for any kind of crowns, inlays, on onlays. That's perfectly acceptable. This space here is going to be closed using resin cement. But overall, I think it's pretty good. The quality of the margin here, and the emergence profile, and the anatomy, and the contact areas. If you compare the second molar with the first molar, you see a beautiful anatomy, almost the same height for the cusps, same thing for the bicuspid. If you check on the occlusal, you see a beautiful anatomy copying the surface that we had on the second molar. Not the anatomy, but the central groove is pretty much similar to the second molar. In terms of contour for the lingual and the buccal is really good. And let's see if we can show you the lingual contact or the lingual margin is darn good here. I mean, if you check with the exploder, you see almost nothing. A visual gap like that would be probably between 60 and 80 microns, which is definitely acceptable in a crown restoration like that. So it's pretty good, and this is the thing I'm doing in my patient's mouth. I'm putting the crown in position, and I'm putting some sort of pressure there with my fingers. Again, don't ask the patient to bite in. Reason why I have to put some pressure with the fingers is because you have the contact area there, so you want to make sure that the crown is sitting properly, is sitting all the way down. And sometimes because some heavy occlusion, some heavy contacts area, so you might not really having a proper evaluation for the margin. So I think it's really good.